start a podcast with a compliment immediately. Well, Scotty, I will see your "I sound great" compliment and raise you. Your beard looks great, despite.
Thank you. Yeah, it's still got some. I think we're gonna do another attempt at a home haircut. I think this Saturday. My wife did a really good job last time, which is quite easy because I just have a high fade, so it's quite easy for her to do. Not taking it away from the professionals, but yeah, the less homeless I look, the better, I think.
Well, this is the line we walk as men with beards. The line between hobo and trendy, very tight. Very like that, you know. Scotty, I think she's done a great job. I actually am concerned for hairdressers coming out of this. There's a few different things that I spent money on that I'm also going, I don't know that I need to spend money on that. Coffee's another one. I used to drink coffee out all the time. Now I'm like, not that bothered with that. I've realized how many things I can do at home, you know. So yeah, Scotty, round 2. Apologies for the last one. It was a dress rehearsal. You know, work in film, we like to rehearse, get the best out of it. I have no doubt.
It's just nice to have a chat. I think we don't get that opportunity to schedule a chat in. So
I'm basically using this podcast as a way to have friends. I'm like, God, what? Anything on Thursday? No, okay, let's get someone in. So, Scott, you see, I've also realized I call you Scotty Brits, but your name is Scott Britton. What do you go by?
Yeah, so I spoke about this as a little backstory yesterday on another podcast with someone. So at the time when I first started kind of putting material out in the world, and when we first started doing charity stuff, my job was dealing with quite serious criminals, and I'd had like a number of threats to my life. I'd had like 2 quite serious threats to my life from working with serious criminals. So when I first started putting things out, I didn't really put my full name because criminals got to know my full name at work, and people didn't. But that's been such a long period of time now since that part of my career. So it's fine. So kind of Scott Brits was just what I was called Brits at work. Everyone was like, instead of calling me Britton or like Scott, it was just always people called me Brits. So I thought that was quite nice. Like, it rings really well. It is quite funny because when you get parcels off people or you get like letters from people and they've only ever known you from your Instagram handle, and then you go to the post office and they're like, have you got ID? And I'm like, yep. And they go, that says Britain. And I'm like, but this is Brits. I'm like, I know. And I explain the whole backstory. And then eventually they give me the parcel. But yeah, so it is Scott Britton. That's fine. But calling me Scott Brits, I think probably more people know me as that than they do my actual name.
That's too funny. I like the idea of you going to the parcel like each week and having to go through it again.
Same. I was like, dude, you were here last week. I was like, we had this discussion last week. You know that my name is Britton. I've explained the backstory to you. It's like, no, we're still going to go through it again.
It's a classic computer says no scenario, right?
Yes.
Scotty, well, that leads us into your... Are we going as far as saying it's your previous career, or is it something you've just taken a break from?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it's really tricky. It is definitely a break. I mean, I don't foresee the kind of trajectory that I'm on at the moment returning back to that. I wouldn't say never. I just don't see that at the moment. So I think like for the ease of it, I think it's super easy to kind of say previous career. I think that's fine.
Okay. So in this previous career, as you're saying, you're getting death threats. That's because you were dealing with some of the high-end criminals. You're not finding people for their dog defecating on the sidewalk and not picking it up. We're talking real criminals. Well, I suppose all criminals are criminals, but do you want to tell us a little bit more about exactly what your role was in the police?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, these were what I would say were dangerous people. So obviously, like you said, there's criminals, and then there's people who are like legitimately kind of dangerous, what they can do. So so I mean, I joined the police, and as you always do, you start off in uniform, and I had a habit of pissing people off very quickly because I would find them doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and I was just very like proactive on that side, and very quickly out of uniform became a detective. and then worked with more serious crimes. So my specialities were in around modern day slavery, human trafficking, and sexual exploitation, both of like children and adults for gain. So dealing with people who are in those, let's call them occupations, those people are very serious and quite nasty people. And at the kind of beginning end of that career, I was investigating people that were involved in all manner of things, including moving of weaponry and stuff like that. So it didn't happen a lot, but it happened a couple of times where I got quite serious. I got a phone call from my boss saying, "Come in. We've had a phone call saying that someone's going to kill you. We think it's serious. We need to have police outside your house. You need to take stuff home with you. You need to kind of watch your back, blah, 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 assess everything that you've done." And then there was time where a criminal had found to have like my address details and stuff like that. So yeah, it was, if you piss people off, like you put yourself in that position. And then dealt with an array of that more serious end of crime. So not to put down being a police officer and dealing with like local community stuff, like that's hugely important what people do. But I just enjoyed dealing with the more serious stuff, to be honest.
It's sort of, I mean, that sounds pretty crazy in terms of slavery. It's something that I feel like we always assign to, the 1800s, the 1700s, slavery. But the more I hear about it, the more I realize it's something that's happening right now. Could you explain? Because when we met, you put it, you start to explain in a way that made it more understandable for me how it is people profit off modern day slavery, and how it comes about, and how it's done so easily and so much.
Yeah, I mean, you look at slavery and you think it was abolished, like 200 years ago, and that kind of idea of people in chains and stuff is obviously was a terrible part of history. But slavery hasn't changed. It's a huge amount of an industry in relation to construction, in relation to all kinds of things like, and we'll talk a little bit later about battle cancer, but charity, unfortunately, sometimes falls under the guise of people doing that. So they'll appear to collect clothing, or they'll appear to collect like items that you want to throw away, but that's actually goes to fund quite literally international terrorism and quite high-end crime. But things like flower picking, agriculture, construction, and obviously like sex work, they're the biggest amounts, but also things called domestic servitude. So there's people who live in this country, unfortunately. I've worked on these jobs where they live in a house. They often have one room in a house, or they have like a little outbuilding, and their job is to be, as what I could best describe, and this really plays it down, and I don't mean it to, but like a living nanny, cleaner, cook, but they don't have a choice. A lot of it is through what you call debt bondage, which isn't 50 Shades of Grey. It's it's where people get you in a debt, and you owe that debt, and that debt grows and grows and grows, and basically no matter what you do, you'll never be able to pay it off. So you have this constant fear. And a common misconception is that most modern day slaves come from outside of this country, and it's not true. There's a huge amount of young people, teenagers. The government, everyone can read this, it's not kind of giving anything away, but you can look at something called county lines, and it's about organized gangs that use networks of teenagers, and they move them to different cities, they get them to deal drugs, hold money for them, things like that. And the most common victim comes from the UK, especially when it comes to sex work and things like that. And then after that, you have poorer countries. So you tend to have like India, Pakistan, and then Eastern European countries where people are exploited and moved around for varying different work under this debt bondage. And if we were unscrupulous bad guys, I could sell you a debt bondage. So you could say, look, Scott, I need 2 people. I've got this thing going on. I need them. I want them to work for, in my construction company, and I never want to pay them. I'll say, okay, give me 10 grand. Okay, now they're yours. Now they're bonded to you. So yeah, it's a big issue. It's a big thing. And I mean, my area of expertise was dealing with the victims as much as dealing with the offenders. So that was dealt with a period of time of, very strange memories of going into brothels, going into like mass occupation properties, so flats where there was maybe 15, 20 people living in a 2-bedroom flat, this kind of stuff, and then developing relationships with those people to get them to tell us what had happened, follow that line all the way down to try and find like the big boss somewhere who was involved. And the government, it's one of the national priorities, whether you dependent on your political stance, but a lot of people, there's a lot of things you could say about Theresa May. But one of the good things was she made modern day slavery and servitude like a national priority. So every time there's a case of it and it's reported, it goes up to the highest like echelons of government to kind of say, right, are we doing something about this? So it's a very serious thing. But yeah, unfortunately, it's pretty much everywhere, and that's a sad thing because you're just not aware of it.
So obviously we've got guys like you with feet on the ground, boots on the ground, sorting it out. What kind of, I mean, you've already mentioned some of the industries, but what kind of things could people that aren't in the police force, what kind of things could we avoid using in terms of services that could help combat it, if any, or is it just a case of it's in a lot of industries and we just don't know?
Yeah, it is in a lot of places and you just don't know, but I think it's about being aware to things. It's also like looking at the person that you're dealing with. So a common one is nail bars. So people go get their toenails, their fingernails done. There's a huge rate of people that are unfortunately debt bonded at work in nail bars. Also car washes. People who go and use hand car washes and it's like £3 for their entire front of the car and inside of the car to be done. Stop and think, what am I paying for this? And like, how many of these would I be able to do to match my own wage? Because these people don't live in our wage. So let's say you're on £10 an hour, but yet you're charging £3 a car and it's a 40-minute wash. Like that person cannot be earning enough money to live in a normal way. So, that's how you stop these industries. Don't use those services that appear to be very cheap. There's a reason that they're cheap. So like I say, nail bars, like car washes. And if you're going to get work done on your house, like, lots of people, they may need roofing, guttering, like some other work. Again, when you're turning up and if you've got people there that and this isn't about not speaking English, but there's common signs. So those people may appear very unkempt, very thin. They don't speak English. They don't really know where they are. They don't have a mobile phone. Those kind of things that a normal person in society, if they were coming and doing some work on your property or your business, you would be like, this just isn't quite right. And then there's phone lines out there to just anonymously kind of give information. But that's how you stop it. Also, like the charity bag drops is a huge thing. If somebody drops a bag, an open bag for you to put clothes in to be sold, like run that through, check it. So like check with the charity that it says is on the front of that leaflet. And don't just kind of blindly go, oh, this is just really good, I'm going to get rid of my clothes, I'm going to go do this. Because unfortunately, that's how they survive on ignorance. It's not surviving on people being bad, because the public isn't. They just survive on kind of flying under that radar.
All right, that is very interesting. It's so funny. I had this conversation with a friend of mine just the other day about car wash. And I was like, I was doing the maths going like, there's 24 people here.
Yeah.
And like the time, because I was literally doing it, and they were like, no, just think of how many cars come through. I thought maybe I've got it wrong, but that's always been on my mind, the car wash thing. I always think, how do these guys turn a profit if they're paying all of these guys? Like that's 240 quid an hour, and they're charging me £7 for the car.
And they're only doing 20 cars an hour. So, and then you've got rent, you've got the materials, you've got the supplies, you've got everything on top of that. Like, yeah, but it's difficult because, we're not, you wouldn't really expect people to start thinking that. Like you don't go to McDonald's and go, oh, well, that Happy Meal's like £3.
Yeah.
So, we're not made to be like that. So it's very difficult for people unless they know to look for it. Because, pound shops like Poundland and Quick Save and all this kind of stuff. Again, you don't go in and go, oh, everything's a quid. Like the staff must be modern day slaves. Like you don't associate those things. It's just, unfortunately, that's what happens.
Oh, that's very interesting. I'm curious, with these death threats with you, how do you know when the kind of threat is gone? In modern days, everyone knows where people live, or they'll find a way to find your data.
Yeah, so again, it's difficult. That's why it goes back to kind of the whole name thing at the beginning, and be really cautious about what I said online. And I did very early interviews about bowel cancer, and I would always say I worked in the emergency services. I wouldn't expressly
Mm,
say where, because of that, and more risk to other people that know me as well. It becomes related in intelligence. Usually, the person who's made that threat, it takes some time to fully attribute that to them.
mm,
In the couple of instances that I've got from early on in my career, one of them ended up going to prison for a very long time. That kind of effectively gets rid of
mm.
that. And then with kind of every day where nothing happens, you kind of think, well, this is kind of fine now. And then slowly, when nothing's happened, like the resources that are put in place to look after you diminish because nothing's kind of happening. So, yeah, and for me, it was always very much it's a hazard of the job. Like say,
Mm.
if you go and pull on the tail of a Rottweiler that's angry, it's gonna try and bite you. You
Yeah.
can't expect that to not happen. And like we spoke about in the last, the last chat that we had, um, my background in relation to some side of things knew I could, to a certain extent, look
Mm.
after myself within a reason. And so yeah, it was always like oh cool, it's been a week, no one's tried to kill me, we're good.
Amazing. I mean, did you sleep fine? Like with that, did it just?
Yeah, I was more worried. Strangely, I was more worried about like obviously my wife, who was my fiance at the time, and our dog. Like it sounds really silly, but I was more worried about them. I was worried that like if somebody came into the property, what was going to happen with them. They aren't like, especially my wife is not someone who's kind of particularly know what to do in that
Mm,
situation. And so it was more of a concern for other people. And again, I think it's not trying to be, oh look how tough I am. It's just more of a very much a practicality thing. But then you also go and do your job. Like I've got to go and carry on and do my job. And
mm,
and I think I was very lucky that I also knew people who had worked with very serious criminals, done an awful lot of things, and kind of dealt with these things. So there, you could speak to people and say, well, how did you kind of deal with this? And they'd give
mm,
you a bit of advice. So I always remember one person who I worked with had said he kept a mattress up against the wall in the window of his kind of rear bedroom, so he could push it through the window and jump out of the house. So like these are people that I'd worked with, who'd been doing undercover stuff for 18 months to 3 years, like that kind of pressure. So me
mm,
getting a couple of things saying, "Oh, we're going to go kill Scott Britton," like in comparison, there's nothing.
mm. I mean, so from learning from your colleagues about what you should do in this realm, obviously helpful, you then shifted focus to something that you, from what I understand, what we spoke about last time, you had very little experience and very few people that could give you advice. Do you
Yep.
want to talk a little bit about how you got into doing charity work, what is now Battle Cancer, and the roots of that? How did that start? How did the first idea come up that you wanted to help out pushing weight around?
Yeah, so I had like quite a checkered like athletic background. Excuse me, I'd done Muay Thai and MMA for about 11 years, and like we spoke about last time, wasn't very good. I very realized like train very hard and stuff, but really not meant to be good at this. And then when I started doing powerlifting, and I was good at powerlifting, so I competed internationally. I won titles in different countries in different weight classes, and I was good at that because I was always quite strong. But every single year, I'd always done something for a charity, and the charity at the time was Macmillan Cancer Support. They were somebody that because and we spoke about this again, and I've had this question asked like literally 3 times in the past week. What was your thing about cancer? Like, what was your reason why you get in? What had affected you? And growing up, I'd lost a lot of like aunts and uncles, and a grandfather who I was very close to had all died from cancer. But it wasn't this kind of like deeply personal thing. It was always seeing a slow because cancer can do two things. It can aggressively come and get you and take you away very quickly, which is terrible, or it can eat away at you very slowly and take you very slowly, which is just equally terrible. And I'd always seen people kind of go and leave us very slowly. And I always remember an ex-girlfriend of mine, her uncle passed away from having 3 separate cancer diagnoses, recovering, and then he eventually passed away. And watching that process of him lose weight, get healthy again, lose weight, get healthy again, lose weight, and then never come back and then pass away, and leaving her aunt was something that was ingrained. So I'd always done something for Macmillan because they'd supported her. Um, and they were good, but they'd never been really impactful. So like did runs, did a meat free month, which was just horrendous because I eat meat, and that was like, do you know what, like this is stopping. I was like, the individual things like can't work. So I was like, I need to capture people's imaginations. And when you go online and you read like charity things, it's always somebody's done something that you can visualize, that you can associate with, that makes you go, wow, okay, like I'm gonna give a little bit to that, or I'm gonna get involved. So I'd kind of sat and worked out like, okay, how much weight could I lift? And I was looking at things, I was looking at the Empire State Building. I was like, it isn't actually that heavy. I was like, the Eiffel Tower, it isn't that heavy. Like, I don't feel they'll catch people's imagination. So I looked at the Titanic and I was like, okay, that was massive. And it sunk. So there was a whole connection between people who lost their lives, it had sunk, lifting something up, like lifting the Eiffel Tower doesn't have the same ring as like lifting something that had sunk away, and that's what captured people's imagination. So it was about 3 or 4 months of planning to do this thing where we broke a Guinness World Record. There's 12 of us that deadlifted for 12 hours. But we got so many other places to do it at the same time. So we got about 30 different venues across the UK to deadlift all at the same time as us. And it was life-changing. I remember the gym owner who we held it there, and he was a really good friend. He was a very like strong person in my life, and said, he's like, this will change your life. He's like, you don't know it, you don't see it. He says, but what you've done and the position that you've gone from into this world is like, it will change your life. So I was like, yeah, whatever. And then after about a year later of just trying to put on other kind of fundraising things that just kind of more misses than hits, I was like, right, cancer doesn't discriminate. Like, it doesn't say you're an elite runner, you're an elite lifter, you're a this, you're a that. It's like, it just goes for everybody. I said, so we need to do something that everybody can do, but will challenge everybody, and it isn't running or walking, because there's lots of iconic things that people can do in and around that, and we'll lose that sphere. So we settled on functional fitness. Like, even if you are a yogi, if you're a martial artist, if you're, a CrossFitter, if you just go to a gym, if you do Zumba, like, what a kettlebell is, what a dumbbell is, and you can move, you can squat, like you can run up and down, you can do a burpee. Like, those are the kind of things that you can push yourself with, but you wouldn't necessarily look at and say, okay, that's a bar from me entering this. So I went and booked Victoria Warehouse in Manchester. I was told by lots of people, like, that's too big, don't do that, like it's too much of a risk. And a mixture of like arrogance / hope / belief was, no, okay, like the whole like, Wayne's World thing, like book it and they'll come. So it was like, yeah, well, we'll book it. And they did, and it was a long slog. Like, I got banned off Facebook, got banned off Instagram because I was messaging so many gyms and brands and things and saying like, this is what we're doing. So Facebook would always be like, you've got a 48-hour ban because you seem to be like an online pest from like pestering all these different companies. And it worked. We got like 500 odd people there, just under 600, and it raised like 40 grand. And it was like, okay, we have something here. And at the time it didn't set out to be a plan to make it a global event. I didn't have a plan to make it become something that would have products and that would have an initiative that's going to change people's lives on a ground. It was just, holy shit, this is really cool. People have really got into it. Like, let's do another. So we did a London event, and London had like 900 people. And I was like, wow, okay, this is a lot. Like, we can get a lot in here. And then the third year we reached out even more. We went to Ireland, we went to Spain, we went to Germany. London like almost doubled. We had 1,400 people take part. And very quickly, people who, when I emailed them before and would just never get back to us, started emailing back. And because we built something, the support grew more and more, and we had more and more people. And that was like, okay, now we need a plan. Like, this has to be, what are we going to do? Who are we affecting? Where can we take this? Like, what areas of the world can we go and make a difference where there's a gap in this? And very quickly, we learned how to run events, how to look at marketing, how to get commercial partnerships. The stuff that I had no clue in. Like, if somebody was murdered in front of me, I know exactly how to set up that investigation, how to deal with it, how to deal with the families, how to deal with forensic strategies, like everything I can deal with. But events was like, where do we get insurance from? Like, what's a health and safety certificate? Like, how do we do an emergency planning procedure for if there's a fire, if there's a bomb scare? Like, we have to test the food and the water, and we have to get insurance coverage for volunteers, and how do we organize it? We had 200 volunteers in London. I was like, we've got to organize 200 people who have given us their time, and all this kind of stuff has been massively learning as we go along. But it started from sitting down and thinking, I don't want to do another meat-free month. I have to do something else. and now we're on a path. Like obviously coronavirus is hit, but we are on a path with a plan. We've got a 5-year plan. We're working with some incredible people, meeting people like yourself. We never had that at the beginning, but it's been a beautiful accident of things that have managed to get us a good chance of making a difference to people.
And what year are you into all of this now? How many years has Battle Cancer been going?
So the first ever Battle Cancer event was 2017. So this is like the 3rd year really, but it'd be like kind of 3rd and a half by the time. So it'll be the 4th Manchester event, but it's like the 3rd year of us running. And I mean, the first 2 years was we just whacked an event on kind of like that one time a year, and we did lots of work around it, but it was almost like a full year. And like I left my job, took a career break to do this full time in December. My wife left her job to do it full time as well. So we almost are like a brand new company, although we're not. We're like a brand new set of people that are taking this on now.
Yeah, it sounds like when you say all that, it sounds like you're set, right? But then you say how long you've been doing it, and you realize you're just in your infancy. So the scope of this is huge. The scale of this is only going to increase. I think you mentioned you went to the States recently too, to do some work there.
Yeah, so we had, so what we also do is we do the event. So this is where it's 4 challenges across the day. The 9-minute workouts, everyone can do them. And you kind of scored on a leaderboard. You find out at the end of the day where you were on the leaderboard. But we also have an initiative, which is a separate thing, but we also go and do fundraising tours. So our commercial partners allow us to go and drop into gyms of all kinds and to take over the class. So you would walk in and think, I've got a 6 o'clock class today. And you turn up and like my bearded faces at the front, tell you all about Battle Cancer. We share a little bit of our backstory. We encourage some support in and around mental health and opening up and sharing. And then we take them through our workouts, and then nearly everybody donates at the end, which is epic. So we started off in Miami. We drove, incredible experience. Everyone laughs, but we drove from Miami all the way to Houston. We did Houston, and then we went from Houston to San Diego. Unfortunately, coronavirus cut our last 2 places off. So we were in California. We were in we did San Diego. We had LA and San Francisco left to go. Those got closed down. We got told you kind of have to leave the country. So we came back. But yeah, we traveled over 3,000 miles in a van, meeting hundreds of people all across the US. And next year we've got events in Miami, we've got events in Houston, we've got events in San Francisco, and we've got more events lined up in Europe with Norway, Holland, and the ones that we've already got this year. So you're right, we are in the infancy, and people look on the outside and go, oh my God, they're like here, and here. It's like, but yeah, they're just the beginning ones. So like for all those other ones, we're back to year 1 for those. But America is like an unbelievable opportunity to make change. It sounds really stupid, and you'll probably laugh. Like, I mean, you've worked on incredible productions, and you'll have seen people all over the US, but it's not until you go and you drive across parts of America you realize how big that place is, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that people don't realize. I mean, you simply have to look at the fact that there's some music artists that are famous just in their state that make more money than some artists that are global. Like, there's a reason Robbie Williams wanted to break America for the longest time. Because it's huge. America is a massive place, and I also feel like their group personality, their culture is one of interaction. They love a chat, so something that you're doing like that's a great place for it. I think people really rally behind stuff like that, more so than here. We're a little bit more conservative here in the UK for sure, still very charitable, but in the States they talk a lot more, and they're a lot more open to those kind of things,
100%. I think you nailed it right. Like, we're very charitable, and I think the way that the British are charitable is very like in a way that they see is very like dignified. They don't like to shout about it, and so we've seen that, like the huge amount of fundraising that comes in with us from the UK. The UK out fundraises every single country we're in, but people don't really talk about it, and we want to encourage that. We want people to like shout about what they've done, because there's a reason why they've had such a strong reaction. So like, let's be honest, people fundraise because of a reaction. Like there's something that's happened, or there's a feeling and a thought in there that makes them do that, or makes them undertake a challenge, or makes them talk to people. Where in the US, I think that barrier of being in fear of talking about how good you are, or talking about the reason why you're passionate about something's gone. I think in the UK, I've met lots of people who are incredibly inspirational and they are so shy about it. Whereas in the US, they see the impact of, I'll tell everyone about this, because 1 out of that 10 might pick it up. And also, I think collaboratively, the US is very different, I think. But it's changing. I think it is changing with people that I deal with. And, you know, I spoke about this last time. I know it's your podcast and I'm here, but speaking to you and seeing that, you know, so you're a Hollywood stuntman, you run incredible retreats, you do a massive amount of like practical and advanced like yoga for people, and you have an incredible social media presence where you actually help people. You do like 5 or 6 vastly different things, but you're interacting and growing each one of those. And the US is very good at that. And I think we are slowly catching that up now in the UK. And it was great for me meeting you and hearing that, because it was like, oh, like, okay, you're allowed to have a couple of things. Like you're allowed to be passionate and push some other things, where I think in the UK, we've been very much boxed to be, you have one job, you have one career, you just do that, you do it well, do it for 30 years, retire and be happy with what you've done. And I think the US is the polar opposite of that. And I think we're slowly coming through to that, I think.
No, firstly, Scotty, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to say, but I believe wholeheartedly that every individual is multifaceted. Like we all have brains, we all have bodies, we all have souls, and we all have different interests. And it's crazy to think that we would just be interested in one thing. And I actually think we get better, even if there is one thing that's our main thing, we get better at that thing by diversifying our interest field. Like when I teach yoga, I often draw on the fact that I really like philosophy, you know, that's unrelated. Or that I watch a movie and I see something happen. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like having different interests will lead into that place. You know, you've got to fulfill the different spheres of your life. You know, as we spoke about last time, having that chair, having different pillars to that chair is far more stable than having that one center pillar, you know?
Yeah.
And I agree with you with the States. The States is based, it's founded on this idea that you can do what you want. Go over there and make it happen. If you think you can do it, do it. You know, whereas the UK, and it permeates our culture too of not like being a bit more shy, just get on with it. Do it well, but get on with it in the background. I always bring a friend of mine up called Andy Lister, who must be one of the best performers. Forget stuntmen, performers. Even if you see him acting, you watch him, you cannot take your eyes off him. He moves so well. He's an I think world champion wushu performer, which is a gymnastic style of martial arts. Flips, jumps, B-twists with weapons, without very dynamic movements. And him and another guy called the Yang Yang, both were performers on Star Wars. They've done real amazing fight scenes, all right? And you would never know. Unless you work with them, you don't know. And I always feel like Andy, if he had the American approach to his career, he would be smashing it. Because that, and I think what happens though, he's getting there anyway because he's so good. It just takes longer for people to realize. Whereas in the States, they don't mind telling you. To your point about the States don't mind telling people about stuff and also celebrating it. I had this conversation with my mom and she was saying how she doesn't like these companies talking about all the charity that they're doing. And I said to her, I understand where you're coming from, but why don't you like it? And she said, well, the idea with charity is that you don't want something in return. My point was, to the people that are receiving that thing, it doesn't matter. If they're getting the funding, shout as much as you want. And maybe people would give more if they felt like they were able to say, look, hey, I did this good thing. Why don't you do this good thing? You know, there's a weird thing about it though.
You're 100% right. And I think we here have had to, we've not had to, I just enjoy it. Like I enjoy thinking about why do people do something in a certain way, and when they think like that, why? And so let's be honest, the vast amount of charitable things, the whole point of Just Giving. So you look at Just Giving and Virgin Money, like that's a public platform. So when people support you, you get to show on a totalizer like how much you raised. And it's a celebration, but also there's very little things we do as humans that don't elicit a reaction and a thought or a feeling. Now, that can even be simple as Instagram. Like look at Instagram and Facebook, and when people, it's been proven, like getting likes on a post releases the same hormones and chemicals as having like praise and positive interaction. And for me, you know, your mum's right. Like the probably the base principle of charity is that you do it solely for that reason. But for me, I don't really kind of care about the reason as to why they do it and what they get from it. And that could be deeply personal because they just do it as a point for themselves. Maybe they've never been affected by something and they go, do you know what? Like I'm so lucky that I've not been affected by anything like this, that I want to keep that luck going, and the universe of balance, like I'm up here at the minute and I'm going to keep it up there by kind of giving out to this. So I think that it's so ingrained and so difficult to tell why somebody gives, why somebody does a challenge. And those conversations that happen in heads, like, let's be honest, we all have our internal conversations, and then we say something outwardly different to other people, that it's super hard. But you're right, I kind of feel like for now that the end goal, it doesn't really matter what happens before. It's like, you know, if Jeff Bezos from Amazon decides he wants to give away £1 billion, but yet he also then writes it off his tax, and it makes it look like, oh, he's done it as a charitable, but it's done this. Like the money goes somewhere good. It's not funding a private island somewhere. Like it's not bought 5 Lamborghinis. Like I think the ultimate point of it is like just to keep that going.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think the charity is helping the person that needs it. If that happens, however that happens, let's get that in place. I think what you're doing is pretty incredible in terms of getting people involved, and it's something like you said, that it's grown pretty quick. My gym, of course, as I mentioned, when I first met you, I'd heard your name before I realized who you are. I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but I heard your name. And in the CrossFit world, particularly, it has really taken off. People have really embraced it. What reason do you think they, as a group particularly, were like, is it just because of your standing in that community, or do you think there's something else to it?
No, I mean, certainly like I think I've grown as a dual thing. Like I think both of them are kind of very intertwined, and that's been very purposeful. So I stopped elite powerlifting when we started Battle Cancer, because I knew that at least 70% of our participants come from a CrossFit background, or they know about CrossFit. So for me, it was like, okay, if I'm gonna get into this and I'm gonna grow this and I'm gonna develop it, like I need to be in that world, and I have to live it, breathe it, know it, and kind of deal with those people. And I think there's 2 elements of it. So like I've been very fortunate. Like I've met loads of people, I've met loads of cool things, I've had incredible opportunities personally and as an athlete, and quite luckily I've managed to get towards the more elite end of CrossFit personally. But it's community. So number one is like a community thing, because any form of fitness group, and this can be from martial arts, it can be from football, rugby, it can be sport based, you come together as a community, and humans like that. They like to have this community sense, but the CrossFit community is particularly very strong. I think the other element is cancer in itself. Like, you know, 9.6 million people die every year from cancer. So that means that if you times that by 10, that's how many people are directly impacted. So you've got at least like 90 to 100 million people every single year in the Western world, where numbers are recorded, that are affected by cancer. So there's so many people. So a huge amount of portion are affected. I think then the other part of that is a common language. So we have obviously different languages, but as humans, you always try and find a connection with somebody. And CrossFit has a very defined common language, which is certain kinds of movements. But a shared experience. So you know from doing CrossFit classes, like how tired you feel at the end of them. And you can say to somebody who, like, so you've got, to me, an insanely interesting life, okay? But, you know, to someone else, they could be a world travel explorer, right? So your 2 reference points are so different. And you think, well, how am I going to connect with this person? But you both do a class, and at the end of that class, you will be able to talk for 20 minutes on a shared like language, and that can transcend different languages, because CrossFit is a global sport, globally affects people. Add that with cancer, add the sense of a community, then those things break down an initial barrier. Because what we want to do with Battle Cancer is, through it be the events, the fundraising tour, the Move Forward program, like, we want people to talk and share and have empathy with each other. And that's my biggest goal, is to have that. But to get two strangers in a room and say, Doug, will you tell, like, Stephen over there, your deepest, most, like, personal connection with cancer and loss and illness and feeling? You're going to be like, what? But if you've been absolutely, we've ended you on that competition floor, you're sweating, you're out of breath, you will high five that person. And as you're walking off, you'll say, why were you here today? Oh, well, I lost my dad. Oh, well, I lost my mom. Like, oh, well, when did you lose her? How did you feel? Like, that conversation opens. Like, we've done that. And I think that's how, I think that it's a combination of community, common language, and then a barrier breakdown that's helped that. And I think if we'd have tried to do it in another sport, we probably wouldn't have been able to, because sports become very, like, definitively different. Like, I couldn't get Premier League footballers to play a football match with someone who plays a Wednesday five-a-side. Like, the Premier League footballer wouldn't have had the same experience as the five-a-side guy. Whereas at our events, we can have elite level athletes have the exact same experience as somebody who's, does one class a week. And I think that's what allows us to do that.
I think that's genius in a way, because what you're doing is you're dissecting through all these class and cultural things, and you're making the exercises a leveler in two ways. A leveler in the sense that how much money I have and how much money you have doesn't give me an advantage.
Nope.
Nothing. What matters is, how hard can I push myself? How hard can I dig deep? How much can I work with my team? There's an evenness between that. A leveler in that sense, and then a leveler as in when a building is leveled, that same thing of working someone so hard. What happens is, generally, as people go through tougher times, we strip away all the fluff, right? Like, it's very hard to remain with any airs of confidence when you're really pushed to the limits, right? Yeah. Anything that's superfluous to your personality gets stripped away. So we get into this quite animalistic state, this visceral state when we train. And that's part of what I like. Like, I always talk about it going animal. Like, when you get to those last few rounds, you're like, I am so tired that you have to go to another, you go into another place, some call it the pain cave, whatever it is, but you access something quite animalistic. Now, interestingly enough, there's a woman called Dr. Kelly McGonigan, and she has just done some research on what exercise effects have on neurology. And when we train together, the part of the brain that is excited is the same part in monkeys and chimpanzees when they groom each other. So that bonding, any bonding thing that they do is what happens to us when we exercise with people. There's something about moving together, and particularly moving to music, but moving together, training together, causes a bond between us, even when we don't know that person. We fall into that herd mentality. We are social animals. So this brings that back, and it's something that's probably lacking in a lot of our lives at the moment as we live more insular lives. As we're living right now, very insular lives, we crave that. That's the thing that people crave the most. So I think what you're doing is such a good thing to get people to connect with their teams, but also as a group to go, yeah, we all went through this together. I was tired, you were tired, and you're right. Then people get along. The other part of the research is that for the next 24 to 48 hours, people's relationships are better after exercise. So you are bringing together a lot of goodness, the social aspect as well as the exercise, and then the neurology and the social interaction, I think is leading to something good. And then on top of that, you throw the charity. This is feel good central is what you're doing there, which is good. And I imagine that's why it's so popular and why it'll continue to be popular.
Yeah, and the biggest thing with that is, like, you've very eloquently put that together, and it's one of the difficulties we found is, until we get somebody to do it, be it from the fundraising classes, so they break down that barrier in a safer space because it's, their gym, or it's where they work out, or we get them to the event themselves, then they get it. And what's very difficult to do is, you can portray it in video, you can portray it in imagery, you can portray it in writing and things like that, but it's not until people come and do it or see it that they get it. And it's quite difficult. It's a difficult task of ours, and it's something that I have to fully accept for us to grow and reach for want us to be. Like, I want to hold Battle Cancer events in like stadiums. So where we get 10,000 to 10,000 people come and do these challenges throughout the day. Like and you know, it's very dangerous to put that out there sometimes because people say, oh, well, that's ridiculous. But for me, it's sensible to say, like, that's what we want to do. And to plan there will take 8 to 10 years. Like, that's not going to happen overnight. It's something that's going to have to happen. But I think my biggest challenge is getting people to understand the exact feelings that you've just explained. And I think slowly we'll get there, and people will manage to get it, and they'll pass that along. And we've had people who come and watch and spectate and then come up to us and say, I'm doing that next year. And it's like, mate, like, perfect. That's exactly what we want, you know, and it's getting people to do it. And I think, you know, this is why I'm so appreciative of you giving me a chance to speak about this, because there's people from a completely different walk of life that don't know me, don't know Battle Cancer, but they follow you, they follow the messages and the things that you're aligned with, that maybe would have looked at something before and been like, oh, that's not for me. But actually, you know, hearing the way that you've put it and putting it into that perspective, they'll open up and think, well, yeah, actually I can do that. And that's something that I think would enhance me and enhance my friends and enhance something else. And it goes back to what you said before. For me, I don't care why you come and do our event. I care about the outcome, that you had a great time, you've felt you've done better, other people have learned and felt better around you. And the ultimate goal of fundraising or our initiative, other people have benefited. So it's just breaking down that thing. So that's a challenge. Like, it's a challenge that I face every day to try and get through. You know, like I say, America, so big, so many people, and they don't know who we are. They don't know what we're doing. And they'll give you like 3 minutes of attention. And I'm like, how do I explain that's like 4 years of my life and this thing that deeply impacts people in 3 minutes? And I've got quick at getting to points. Like, I've got like, right, gotta say this, gotta say that, and people are, okay, like, that makes sense. I get it. So yeah, it's a really good way that you put that. I think that's really cool. And I think, like, the Move Forward program that we're doing, which is 10 weeks of we fund fitness classes for people, 2 classes a week for people that have been physically affected by illness, or they've had a very close family member affected by illness, and we chart their physical progress over those 10 weeks. But there's also a chart throughout those 10 weeks in relation to happiness and mental health, and the biggest increases are in relation to the mental side, and they all cite a couple of very common things. So they get an accountability for each other. So they feel they don't want to let someone else down by not being there and being supportive of somebody else. They also get pushed physically to improve, because other people are improving around them and they don't want to let them down. And then they also have a shared support network. So when things aren't great, people do understand about that. And these are people who have come from being physically at the weakest they'll have ever been in their life, you know, as young people, as adults, to then becoming at the end of it, standing there and saying, I am now physically and mentally stronger again. And that's like a huge thing. But the big part of that, we don't have a magic formula. Like, we don't give a little bottle out that says, feel great about your life. It's the groups, it's the people. And it's the same with the events. Like, yes, we've fundraised nearly £800,000 in 3 years, but I haven't done that. Like, us here from the organization haven't done that. It's the groups of people that have kept each other accountable, supported each other, and done stuff. And that's my biggest pride, is what other people have done. And seeing that is an incredible feeling. And it gets very addictive. Like, whenever we put an event on and people start fundraising and they post about it, and afterwards I'm like, this is amazing. And I think the world that I've operated in for a long time, this is almost like an addiction, where you think, let's put more events on. They go off, like, people are excited, they come up to you, they're so happy / relieved / emotional. Like, it's very difficult to describe, like, how much that can actually become addictive in a good way.
Yeah, I can totally get it. What you're effectively doing is mobilizing people. People that want to do good don't really have the platform to do it. You're giving them a place to go. Here we go. Here's something very tangible that you can get in. It's interesting what you say about the number one thing with the mental health thing is feeling accountable, feeling connected to people. And part of that is accountability. There was a study I think it was in the 80s, Emil Durkheim, sociologist, did an experiment on suicide. And she was interested. She thought suicide was the most personal thing you could do. And she thought that must be so personal that culture can't affect this at all. And what they found is, in fact, the more network someone was in, the less chance they had of committing suicide.
Yeah.
When someone was, if they had just 2 connections to someone else, they were more likely, much more likely, cross-culturally, to commit suicide. When they had lots of networks connected to them, then they were less likely. And what's interesting is the same way cancer can affect 10 other people, that one person dying or going through an illness affects 10 others, in the same way our good work can do the same. So we talk a lot about coronavirus and the R value, about how infectious it is. A lot of things are also infectious, like you're saying, people coming to the event, watching it, going, I want to do that. And you get that exponential growth. I think that's what you're seeing now. And I'm really hoping this coronavirus doesn't take that away. And if anything, boost that back up.
Yeah, I think so it's great what you said. I mean, and that's so true. I did a podcast with a guy over in LA, and I put you in a message with him the other day. So hopefully you guys can.
Oh, he's from
connect on
LA.
that.
I didn't realize.
So
okay.
he lives in LA, and he dropped this massive question at the end. So and he went, okay, if someone's thinking about committing suicide, what would you say to them?
Wow.
I'm like, okay. So I have had, and like I've had some experiences from a work capacity where I am with somebody who is going to try and do something, but then I've got hours with them, like, hopefully. So one particular issue where I talked to a woman off jumping from somewhere was, I had hours with her. I basically spent nearly 6 hours with her. And so I didn't want his podcast to go on for 6 hours. So I'm like, well, I can't give you that answer. But what I will say is how it would help me and when I've ever felt in a dark place, or I've ever felt like, what would the world be like if I'm not here? Because we're humans, we have these thoughts. And I said, for me, it's always about that accountability to other people. And I said, if you were feeling that you didn't want to be here, I said, it's mostly to do with self-worth. Like, you feel that you have no good left on this earth anymore, or you feel that your impact on people is diminished. I said, so it's very hard to get that person to see self-worth. I said, but write down a list of every single thing you've ever thought of that you've done for someone else. I said, and that could be simple as you held a door open for somebody this morning, or you rang your mum, you brought some shopping the other week, you donated a year ago, maybe you helped your best friend move house like 18 months ago, and now that best friend's married and you did stuff at the wedding and they've got children and you looked after the children for a night when they wanted to go out. I was like, they may seem like meaningless things, but when you write them down, you basically create a list of going, I'm actually really worth something, and I am so interconnected to people here. Like, people rely on me. Like, even the small thing, like maybe it's every morning you work in an office and you see the morning cleaner and you say good morning and you make them a cup of tea, whatever. Like, you have so many connections as people. And that would be my advice for somebody. Try and create again your links and your networks, and you will look back at that and go, actually, me not being here, it is going to have an impact. This is going to be far reaching. And I was like, that's the only thing that I think I can say very quickly is to something. But that came from a point of exactly what you said. Like, Battle Cancer, we've never paid a single penny for advertising. So we've never boosted a post. We've never paid for an ad agency. We've never put a billboard up somewhere. Like, we've never done that. We will to reach big amounts of people. We know we'll have to do that. But we're up to so far, we've had 7,000 people do the events, and we've not paid a penny on that. That is our number. That is people seeing something, talking about it, sharing it, and we have a dedicated group of people that love Battle Cancer probably more than I do, and they are like, they're the super spreaders. So do you remember with coronavirus, there was this thing of like, there was super spreaders. They're the super spreaders. They're the ones who give up their hours to tell people. They post. We've been running online classes, and they're there every single time. Questions, sharing it. And that is, they're my little super spreaders. And you see how connected you are with people. And, even for like yourself already, you've, I really wanted to integrate the work that you do into what we do. It wasn't even difficult because it's basically putting a circle in a circle hole. Like, and you've instantly been like, here's this material, here's this thing I want to do. Like, I want to do this, I want to connect you with this, I want to do that, and I want to do this. And I'm sat back there thinking, this is amazing. Like, this is exactly like what people do. And there's no financial gain for you. There's no immediate gain, but you've just unlocked things and done stuff. And I think when the message is right and people are doing something a good reason, people react in the way that you've done, the way that our volunteers have done. And I think that's what we're really lucky to do. And that's this very extreme reaction. But for people who are feeling sad right now, or they don't feel like they want to be, especially now, you know, being locked in your house, not having that access to people, your self-worth might start to go, but you are so impactful to many people. Like it's so hard to quantify.
Yeah. The potential in every individual, any human is massive, absolutely massive. Also, Scotty, I would say don't downplay your role. Like my desire to want to help you is because I see that you've made it very accessible to help. You've gone, look, I've done a lot of the hard work already. Like I said, I think most people want to help. They just don't always know how. So what you do is quite nice. You put a platform forward. You're like, here's a way to help. I'm as passionate as mental health stuff as clearly you are, because for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but I feel like it's seen impact is, like you say, addictive. You know, you spoke about your different career paths in yoga. They often talk about dharma, which is your path for life. Marcus Aurelius spoke about it being your fate, and your life is smoother when you follow your fate or your dharma, and it's harder when you try do your own thing, when you go with your ego. So you've got to find that smooth run. And for me, I'm finding the same way. My career path from stunts, I enjoy it, but in terms of my impact, I feel like this is where I can have more impact. And the passion I feel when I see someone get something that I'm teaching them or feel better because of something I've done is really nice. And again, back to your point about charity, I don't feel like that's a bad thing. I feel like that is our way, just like a like on Instagram, that person being happy releases those endorphins, which makes me more likely to do it again. And I want to do it for as many people. What you're doing, though, reminds me so much of a quote from a book called The Prophet. Very short book, and I can't recommend anyone to read it. I think it's like 40, 50 pages, really short, and it's just poetry. But it's very easy to read. There's no kind of like, what the hell does that mean? Very simple. But one of the quotes is, work is love made visible. And if you can't work with love, then it's better that you take arms from the steps of those that do. The point being that everything we do, we should put our heart and soul into because we like doing it. We enjoy it and we're passionate. It doesn't mean it's easy, but we work with love. So that at the end, there's a product of love. That thing that you see, just like making a meal has the ingredients, but also the fact that someone's put time and effort in. And when we consume it, we take it in. The same with the work you're doing. You're putting your time, your effort, your soul, the hard work, the hiccups, you're putting your love into that. And I think people start to feel that. And that, although is intangible, is also addictive. And it makes me want to do the same, which is why I say don't play down your part in this. You're doing great work, and it's a pleasure to want to help. In terms of mental health, just as a segue, you also had a great point last time about the mental health medical aid kit. Could you just describe that? Because I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, so what we managed to do is the guys at Movember are incredible, international charity. They do huge amounts of work, and they developed a mental health toolkit aimed at barbers. So they very rightly said, okay, men in particular. So we just talk about men. Like, I'm not saying that women don't suffer from mental health, of course they do, but let's for this to talk about men. So okay, so they go and they will have an open chat with someone who's basically a relative stranger once every 3 weeks, and they allow them into this personal space, which is cutting their hair, touching their face, so it breaks down this like a physical and emotional barrier. And quite often barbers, similar to like people like tattoo artists and stuff like that, they'll just tell them everything. And the barbers, they're like, whoa, okay. And they become very emotionally clever people. But also there's going to be signs that they're going to spot in those conversations. And they're also going to hear things that maybe ring an alarm bell and they don't quite know what to do. And me and Freya went and met with Movember and said, look, like, what can we do together? Like, what can we give you from Battle Cancer to get your message out there even more? And he was telling me about this program, and I said, look, fitness, man. I said, like, coaches, PTs, gym owners, group class leaders, like I said, they have the exact same relationship. I says so there's a touch, so they touch people. I've done classes with people where I've taught them how to squat, for example, and I always say, like, are you okay with me touching you? Because I'm going to tap your knee and make your knee come out. They're like, yeah, of course. If I walked up to a stranger and just said, can I touch you, mate? They'd be like, what? So, and and I've never met that person before, but I'm in a class and I just say, okay, to touch you, I'm going to move your knee, I'm going to move your, yeah, of course, touch here, do this, do that. So there's a physical breakdown of a barrier, and then there's a mental one. So people will tell you about what's going on in their life. They'll tell you if their wife has left them, if their loved one's going through cancer. They'll tell you about their finances. They'll tell you about all manner of things in that. And I said, so we need to take this toolkit, we need to give it to these people in the fitness professionals. I think even more than barbers, I think the numbers are going to be wide reaching. So we have a platform, not huge, but a platform. I said, so we've got the Move Forward program, which is this 10 weeks. I says, but let's put that at the beginning. So let's do a session for fitness professionals, anybody who works in fitness, from yoga, martial arts, sport, anything. They can come for free, and we're going to deliver this toolkit to them. So this is something that we are going to give out. They come, they give us 3 hours of the day. We're going to give them some freebies. We'll give them a workout as well, but they will leave with a first aid kit for mental health, because and I think we spoke about this before, that if you cut yourself while you're chopping up a tomato, you know what to do. Pretty much, like, depending on how bad it is. You know, I need to stop that blood flow, then I need to clean that wound, and I need to dress it. The problem is with something where you cannot physically see what's happening from an injury, which mental illness is. It's an injury, but you can't see it. How do you treat that? And there's a few things that people can do. Non-judgmental questions, you know, finding out how bad that person's feeling at the moment, and then signposting. But how to do that, where to signpost. For most people who are phenomenal fitness coaches and motivators, they don't know, or they've been guessing along the way. And I think to give people something that isn't, you know, we're not saying that it's scientifically 100% accurate, but to arm them with something is better than nothing. And that's what we can't wait to do, is facilitate that and get people better prepared for how to help people. And I think one great plus of social media has been people are now being much more open to sharing what's going on in their life. You know, you go back to coal mining days, World War II days, the amount of mental health that men would have suffered but never ever dreamt of spoken about, where now we've got inspirational people that talk about this. And you know, the stuff that you put out is, let's be honest, if you'd have said that to a 1950s guy, he wouldn't have done it.
Not going to fly.
No, he wouldn't have done it. And you are not, we've discussed this, you're not a particularly overly spiritualized yoga practitioner. You don't, whilst you have an in-depth knowledge of all that stuff, that's not your predominant way that you go out to help people. But even the way that you deliver it, if you'd have said that in 1955, you'd have been laughed out of a room. People would have been like, no, this is a joke, whatever. I'm going to go, and my therapy is drinking in the pub, or, you know, whatever. When now people are open to that, and you've got really inspirational people that are getting that message through. So I think now is the key time. And look, from coronavirus, all you have to do is search coronavirus mental illness, and you'll see the unfortunate amount of suicides that have gone up. You'll see the amount of stories from people that are saying, I felt alone, I didn't have any support, I didn't have any help. Where we are there is help. People unfortunately don't know the right way to get it at the minute. And I think we can really do something with that.
Yes, it's so interesting, the point you make about how times have changed, and you're totally right. Times have changed, and I feel like because the outward appearance is so obvious, everyone's been looking after themselves to some degree. Like, it's got a lot better. Family Guy always have the great skit about the in shape, out of shape 1920s guy. And like, what, you know what I mean? It's got like, got a bit of a paunch. He maybe has a little bit of a bicep. But that's it. You know, that's what in shape was. You're like, look at that strapping young man. You know, it's still a paunch though. Whereas now we've changed it, because we've become more educated on our training methods, become more educated on our food. You know, all of those things are in place, and I really look forward to the future of doing this with mental health, where the same thing, where meditation isn't a thing that people that do yoga do. It's like brushing your teeth. People go, oh, I need to look after my brain, because what I don't want to do is wait for my teeth to fall out and then start brushing my teeth. Let me look after this thing. Let's keep this maintenance. Let's keep this maintenance of how I'm doing, because your brain's at the core of all of it. You know, even what we see, our eyes are picking up things, but it's projected in our head. That's where everything happens. Yes.
I also think, not even in relation to looking after your mind doesn't just develop your mind. So, you know, I don't want to get too deep about it, but when you talk about cancer, So let's look at cancer versus coronavirus, okay? Coronavirus is something that's picked up from bacterial, attacks your body, attaches itself, mutates, and causes respiratory problems and can lead to death. You don't catch cancer. Cancer is something that develops dormantly within your body and mutates. It's a stress reaction. So what people are saying, you said there, we're fitter, we're healthier, we look after ourselves, we've got availability of more stuff, but why are cancer rates growing up and up and up and up? Because it's a stress reaction in the body. And there's a fantastic guy who runs a program called Strong Fit, which is he's called Julian. He talks massively about the sympathetic and parasympathetic within the body and our reactions to things, and that the concept of fight and flight. We in a modern society, unfortunately, high pressure jobs, big friendship groups, social expectation, those are our new fight. So we are constantly in this situation where our body is going da, 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 da. So things like cancer, because that's your body's stress reaction, it says I need to do something to what's going on here. So cancer develops. And I'm not saying that stress, I'm not doing the Daily Mail list of cancers, but stress is directly linked into that. And where do you often control that stress? In your mind. So even looking at it from a point of saying, if I look after my mind, it's going to look after my body. It's not just saying it's going to look after my mind. I think there's such an underwritten understanding of what your mind does in relation to releasing cortisol, to releasing stress hormone, and what that can do within that, and having the direction that you've given. So you gave us a video the other day and you messaged me saying, have you had a chance to check it out? Like, I watched it instantly. I watched it as soon as it came in. And I'm like, this is amazing. It is like, and I'm the world's worst hypocrite, because I'm always like training and doing stuff. And I'm constantly saying, I've got to be busy. I've got to be busy. I've got to be doing stuff. And I watched it. I was like, you absolute hypocrite, Scott. I was like, you will talk to people till you blue in the face about how this is good and you should be doing this and doing that. And I was like, I literally don't do any of those things that he suggested there. It's like, I need to do some of that, because if I'm not good, other people that now rely on me for work, for growth, or whatever else, like, I'm not going to be good for them. So I need to start looking after that. So I think even if you struggle to associate doing that for you, which a lot of men do, you can actually start to pull that list together and say, do you know what? Looking after my head is going to help 100 people, not just me. It's still a big impact.
It comes back right around to the thing that we're connected. How I am is going to affect how I have relationships with others. Each one of those people, have 10 people. You had that Wayne's World reference before, and he says, or maybe it's Austin Powers. He tells 10 people, then he tells 10 people, then he tells 10 people, and so on and so forth. And that's exactly it. We are connected like that, Now, Scotty, I'm aware of your time. I know you got that call at 11:30. I just want to say you've done such great work touching people, whether it's helping them open their knees in the squat, or getting through battle cancer sessions, or what they're going through. Just a quick wrap up. Where can they find you? How can they help you during this coronavirus time?
Yeah. So biggest thing for us is we understand there's so many charities going on at the moment. There's so many different movements. All we're asking during this period is to spend some time looking about what we're around and what we're trying to do. Battlecancer.com, simply just type in www.battlecancer.com. Really nice and easy. Everything is in there, from the Move Forward program to our blog posts. So you're going to see the work that you've delivered for us there. You can read about the team. You can see videos of the events. You can find out everything we're about. On Instagram, it's @battle.cancer. You can catch up to date stuff there, see all our shiny videos and shiny pictures. But the website's where you're going to learn a lot about what we've done. You can even see the medical studies that were done in relation with Belfast University for the Move Forward program. So you can check everything out from there. The biggest thing for us is we do survive off the events. Your ticket money pays for those events, and we ask you to fundraise. We've moved our UK events now to October. We've got London on October the 17th. We've got Manchester on October the 25th. And from the kind of conversations that's coming from our venues and the numbers of people we have at our events, we will be okay to run those. So we need people to start purchasing the tickets, commit to doing something in October, and say, right, okay, during this coronavirus time, I'm going to start my fundraising. Cancer charities have been hit by 90% reduction in income. We've seen friends lose their jobs in cancer charities that we know dearly. Cancer doesn't go away. Cancer is not going to have a vaccine, next year. It's not. We need people to come back to us. So yeah, just checking us out is amazing. If you want donate to the Move Forward program, again, go through the website there, you can click through donate. But yeah, just sparing us a bit of time. And the biggest thing for me, and it might sound a bit cheesy, but even if you don't want to do any of that, just taking a couple of seconds from listening to this podcast and checking out what we talk about and thinking about somebody that meant something to you, or thinking about how you felt, and opening up that thought and that feeling. I think that's the biggest thing I'd just ask anybody to do, because when you remember that person, you remember that thought and that feeling, you carry on their memory, and you'll open up yourself to kind of maybe think about things in a different way than you've done before. But yeah, battlecancer.com, at battle.cancer on Instagram, or battlecancer on Facebook. It's 2 easy words. You type them in anywhere, you'll find us.
Scotty, thank you so much, man. Appreciate this, and look forward to seeing all the stuff you'll be coming up with now and after coronavirus.
Dude, as always, I think we're going to have to do another corrupted file, so I'll get to speak to you again in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much, mate. It's always an absolute pleasure. It's not like a podcast. It's like a really good conversation. So thank you so much.
Likewise. All right, buddy. Take it easy.